Hey friends, it's Anna, and welcome to a very cozy bullet journal setup where we are really going to embrace some autumn vibes. When picking a theme for my September pages, I just went into full fall mode, and I love how warm and inspired these pages make me feel. I think you'll like this one too, so grab some pumpkin spice or chai tea, get cozy, and let's start journaling. I'm going to be using my Pigma Micron fine liners for the drawing throughout this setup, mostly sizes 02 and 01. We're starting with the cover page on this right side, and I'm going to draw a few doodles. My theme really just is the season of fall, so when I was sketching these pages out, I basically just drew anything that reminded me of the season. Leaves, fall plants, pumpkins of course, books, candles, mushrooms. We're even going to have a cozy sweater. For this cover page drawing, I'm creating a few of these elements gathered together underneath where the title is going to be. I started out with the vase and some stems of leaves, and now I'm drawing a book laying open next to it. I'm using a very loose, casual kind of art style, not worried about making the pictures perfectly shaped or proportional because I wanted to have a very relaxed feel, and I also wanted to feel relaxed while drawing it. Now I'm adding a few candles. The two taller ones behind the books have some wax dripping down, and this one to the left of the book is supposed to be a decorative candle, like it's a nice ceramic jar with some patterns on the outside. Of course, I had to have some pumpkins or it wouldn't truly feel like fall, so I started off with a pretty basic one and then a taller, more oddly shaped one that's probably more like a gourd. We're ending with another vase of leaves on the left side, and then I'll add some leaves floating around like they're swirling in the breeze. I was very much inspired by Leela journals for these spreads. I'm sure if you're on Instagram, you've come across her beautiful page and stationery shop. I love her art style, and I came across some of her old bullet journal setups on Pinterest, so that inspired me to create these pages with a similar feel. For the title, I'm going to use my tried and true alphabet stamp set, and now we're going to add some color. I am so excited that I was recently gifted the Zebra Pen Mild Liner collection. These are markers or highlighters I've been wanting for a long time, and we're going to be using some earthy and neutral shades. I am probably going to be talking up this color palette throughout this whole setup because I am just so in love with it. I adore neutrals and muted, earthy tones, and fall is the perfect time for these colors. I just wish my whole life could exist in these shades. I want my whole wardrobe in this color palette. I want my house to be in this color palette. I just love it so much. See, I'm already talking about it for too long. So I'm using 5 colors for the setup. You'll see on the next page I'm going to add one more, but for the bulk of the illustrations, we'll be coloring in with these 5 colors: the beige, cream, cool gray, olive, and copper. I'm doing everything with a base layer and then adding the teeniest bit of shading in a few places wherever I might have drawn some contour lines or where I think would be good to add some depth, like the ridges of the pumpkins. I love how the warmth of these colors blends together so well, but there's also a little bit of contrast with the more saturated copper and cooler toned gray. Now to fill in some of that empty space, I'm going to pull from a few different washi tape sets. First, my tried and true grid set. I use these tapes all the time. I'm taking a few from this new vintage style set I just got called Record of Backyard, 2 really thin tapes and 1 with text. I also wanted a horizontal tape option with text, so I'm grabbing this one from my botanical set. And one more time, I just have to show you the colors with the tape because I love this aesthetic so much. The drawings aren't super big and I don't want the tapes to overtake them, so I'm going to cut all my grid tapes into really thin strips, and like I said, I'm placing them wherever there's empty space. Once those are all pasted in, that will complete one half of our cover pages. I hope you guys are enjoying this autumnal setup as much as I am enjoying creating it. To me, fall is such a cozy season, but it also feels very invigorating and inspiring. I haven't been in school for a bit, but I still get that back to school feeling of wanting to start new projects, work on my goals. One personal and professional goal I want to focus on this season is digital art, actually. I recently got an iPad and started learning Procreate, which is something I could not have done without the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. If you guys haven't heard of them, Skillshare is the largest online learning community designed by creatives for creatives with a huge range of topics. I took the Intro to Procreate class and it was a hugely helpful beginner's guide. I honestly don't know what I would have done without it. Skillshare also offers this really cool thing called Learning Paths, where they put together curated sequential class selections for mastering a specific skill. This community has thousands of creative classes in countless categories ranging from illustration, photography, productivity, running your own business, and even things like crochet and baking, which are perfect fall activities, so I might have to check some of those out this season. If you are also wanting to pursue your creative hobbies or level up your career-related skills this fall, Skillshare has given me a special deal for you guys. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So be sure to check that out below. And now we're moving on to this second cover page in the journal, which will really serve as a calendar / quote page / habit tracker. I'm throwing a few different things on here. If you've been following along with me, you know I've been experimenting with a lot of different monthly layouts this year. At the top of the page, I have a September calendar and I'm writing the title this time in a calligraphy font. As you'll see on the next page, I'm switching back to a monthly log format instead of calendar to keep track of all of my events. So I at least wanted a calendar on the cover pages if I ever need to visualize the month this way. The bottom half of the page will be for a few habit trackers. I had kind of moved away from trackers in the past few months, but we had a really hectic summer and I want September to partially be about reestablishing some normal routines again. We moved this month, so I'm still trying to settle in and get back to normal, and I think getting back on track with some of these habits will really help with that, and trackers always motivate me. Especially if I haven't used them in a while, I think the novelty makes me more excited to fill them out. So I wrote out my 4 habits to the side and I'm drawing some rectangles next to them, labeling each square inside 1 through 30 for each day of the month. You'll see in a second when I add the colors, I'll highlight each of the habits a different color, and my plan is to use each habit's respective color to highlight the days I complete that task. I'm leaving the area in the center of the page blank for now since that's where the quote will go, and with the empty space next to the calendar, I'm adding another fall-themed drawing. Here we have a cozy sweater, and I actually chose the design to loosely recreate Rory's sweater that she wears in the first episode of Gilmore Girls. I feel like most people agree that this is the quintessential fall show, so when I was trying to decide on the sweater design, my mind immediately went to Rory walking around Stars Hollow in this. And after I looked up the picture for my sketch, I ended up just watching Gilmore Girls, so that's what I was watching actually while filming this setup. I drew some more fall leaves floating around. You'll see me add these to most drawings, which is a great way to tie them all together. And now we're going to add the color. And this is where I'm going to introduce one more color, the Crayola Light Medium Golden. Why I couldn't use the cream mild liner for this sweater, I don't know, but in the moment I just really wanted this shade of light medium golden. I'm adding a cream highlight to the calendar and coloring in the leaves. I'm saving the colors for the habit trackers for last because I was trying to envision with everything else what colors would go best there. And now we're going back to my alphabet stamp set to stamp out our quote. In keeping with the theme, it goes, "And all at once summer collapses into fall," which is a quote commonly attributed to Oscar Wilde, but I couldn't actually find the source material, like if this is from a book or a personal letter. So if you know where this quote actually comes from, please let me know. I'm adding the colors to the habit trackers. To finish this page off, I'm going to add a few washi tapes, and then we'll flip over to my monthly log and tasks. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm using a log format instead of calendar this month. This spread is where I'll keep track of events and travel and deadlines and things like that. I'm using my Tombow Furunosuke brush pen to write out my title, again in that thin calligraphy. And setting up the functional portion of this spread is really easy. One vertical line creates 2 columns. On the left, I'm writing out the dates of the month and days of the week, and with all the space on the right is where I record whatever I would normally put in my calendar. You'll see at the end, I also separate out each week so I can visualize my weeks as well. I really like this format. I tried it out for the first time a few months ago after I read The Bullet Journal Method by writer Carol. It's so easy to set up and it's very space efficient. Having the whole line allows me more room to write things out than I typically have space for in a boxed calendar. The decorations for this page are also incredibly simple. I'm drawing some more floating leaves swirling around the title. I'm using 4 different leaf shapes every time I draw these, a very simplified version of an oak leaf, which I always color in with copper, 2 basic leaf shapes, one of them as very tiny leaves scattered throughout the big ones, and these vines that I just color in black with the fine liner. I think the colors of this setup create a very tasteful feel, but the drawings are actually very basic, very beginner friendly, and time efficient if you're looking to recreate these. That's the balance I usually try to strike in my journal, art that has an elegant look but isn't too complex to create. Moving on to this right page, which will be for tasks and notes. I'm writing out the section titles with my stamp set, and I created a little enclosed space for each. In the middle area is where I'll add some more fall themed drawings, and of course we have the leaves, which will help to blend the drawings and the rest of the page. We're going to bring in some mushrooms here, which I have to say are one of my favorite things to draw. But back to the functional parts of the spread, the top section is pretty self-explanatory. This is where I put my monthly task list, and I've liked having a notes section recently because I can really use this for anything. If you've seen my other setups, you might know sometimes I like having an area for tasks related to my annual goals. Sometimes I like writing intentions before the month starts. And sometimes I'm creating the month setup and I still don't have in mind what would be the best use for this section, because I do typically make the spreads a little bit before I actually fill them out. So I like calling this notes because when I'm actually planning for September, I just have some extra space to write whatever turns out to be relevant. Notes is kind of a catch-all if I don't know exactly how I'm going to use the space yet. Now I'm coloring in the page. I'm so happy to have these mild liners in my collection now because I prefer colors that are somewhat desaturated in my journal. It creates a more subtle effect, which I like, so these are perfect for that. I've also seen people use these to annotate their books because they're basically highlighters, so maybe I'll have to try that out too. I'm going to finish coloring in the page, and that will be it for my September log and tasks. Next, we have the spread I am most excited about. I thought it would be super festive to create a fall bucket list. And let me tell you, I have already gone so completely into fall mode, so much so that I'm already going to be able to cross off multiple things on this list. And it's not even September. I don't know what it is, but I am ready to start celebrating fall way too early every single year. I wrote my title with a combination of calligraphy and the stamp set, and then of course I'm drawing some leaves to decorate the lettering. This spread will take up both these pages, but I'm using this left side for the actual list, and then you'll see what I'm saving the right side for. I came up with 8 items I wanted to add to the list. I could have done way more, but I didn't want it to become an overwhelming thing. I have read Harry Potter, which, because I'm a huge Harry Potter nerd, is usually something I do every year. Watch Gilmore Girls, and we know I've already started that one, and this will actually only be the second time I've watched it. Carve a pumpkin, visit a pumpkin patch, roast pumpkin seeds, a slew of pumpkin-related activities. Read a dark academia book, which is the perfect aesthetic for autumn. I actually recently finished Babel, so technically I've done this one, but it was summer when I finished it, so I think I need to read another one when it's actually fall. And I haven't read The Secret History or If We Were Villains yet, which I know those two are the most popular dark academia books. The last two are make homemade fall potpourri or a simmer pot, and then try a new fall drink recipe. I've done this last one as well, and it's so good I have to share it with you guys. I did this with my regular latte, but I added 1 tablespoon maple syrup, 1 teaspoon vanilla extract, a 1/4 teaspoon cinnamon, and then an 1/8 teaspoon nutmeg and an 1/8 teaspoon cloves. I mixed all these together in my mug before pouring the espresso and milk in, and it was so good. It was like drinking autumn in a cup. And I think this would work well with however you prepare your normal coffee, or would probably taste good with black tea as well. You guys gotta try it and let me know if you like it. As you can see, I added a few drawings to go with some of the things on the list. We have a group of 7 books by Harry Potter, some pumpkins in the middle, and a mug of coffee with some fall leaves. I'm going to color all these in before getting to the right page. This was such a fun list to create. It really makes me want to do a fall TBR spread in my reading journal, although I'm kind of running out of space in that journal, so I might just add it to my bullet journal actually. It would certainly fit with this theme. Now for this right page, I thought I'd leave some space to paste in a few pictures, maybe if we got any cute photos doing these fall activities. I'm using this picture of my cat Coco just to mark where the pictures would go, so I can go ahead and draw little frames around them. I use a little portable printer to get these 2x3 photos. I love including photos in my bullet journal. It really makes it feel like a personal journal instead of just a planner, and it makes it so fun to look back on. I'll link this printer that I use along with all the supplies I'm using in this setup. I don't know if I've said that yet. All the supplies will be in the description box below. I'm adding a few more leaves in the corner and coloring them in. I'm also going to do all the frames as different colors as well. And then I'll add some washi tape in the negative space up top, and that's it for the fall bucket list. Oh, but then I thought some areas of the page still felt too empty, so I'm adding a few more leaf doodles wherever I feel like needs it. Now on to the last spread of this setup. This will be my first weekly for September. This is another spread that I adopted after reading the bullet journal method, although I still changed it up a little bit to fit what I wanted, but now this is definitely my favorite weekly layout. It'll take up both of these pages, and I'm doing my little header in the top left. I wrote out the dates this weekly will cover, September 2nd through 8th, and I'm drawing a mini calendar below with the week we're on highlighted. Now I'm drawing a box to enclose pretty much all the space on the 2 pages, and this is where I'll have my dailies. I'll show you how those are laid out in a second, but this other space that is sectioned off in the bottom right is for a weekly task list. I'm writing that title with the same calligraphy font, and these highlights are to designate the area to write tasks. Back to the left page, I'm creating the header for Monday using my stamp set with a highlight behind it. That's all I'm going to do for now to set up my dailies. In the bullet journal method, he has you creating new daily headers as you go throughout the week. So you use however much space each day needs and then start the next day right underneath it. This works out really well for me because my days vary drastically on how much I write down in my journal. Some days, if I'm really busy or I already know exactly what I need to do, I don't even use my journal. And on some days, I end up using a ton of space to do a lot of figuring things out or planning, or I just have a really long task list to write down. So this is a very efficient use of space for me. I can use very little or very much depending on that day. So far, this layout has provided me enough space each week I've used it, so 2 pages seems to be a good sweet spot for me. To decorate the weekly, I'm drawing some more fall doodles in the corners. Here on the left, we have another vase of leaves with a candle, and then on the right, I'm going to draw some pumpkins with a candlestick. My plan is to probably change up which fall drawings I add to each weekly. Maybe the next one will have a book or a scarf. There's so many fall themed items you can draw, and I think that will make it even more interesting to look back on. Here is the final weekly spread, and that completes my September bullet journal setup. I absolutely love how these spreads turned out, and even better, I had such a cozy time creating them. I hope you enjoyed journaling with me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll leave a link to my last setup and my reading journal if you guys want to check those out next. I'm wishing you a beautiful start to autumn.